Hi, my name is Leon. As you can see, I have an injury. Unfortunately, I fell off a ladder. Since explaining it would take too long, so I try to draw it for you.
Howdy ho! No! Help, please! Ow! Help! 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 Yuki, help! Okay, my injury was not as dramatic as in the comic. In this video I want to build a special shoe sole that relieves the pressure on my injured foot, exactly at this point. I will attach it to an old shoe and test at the end of the video if it actually helps me. Now the project begins. First I need to make some preparations to 3D scan the shoe. For that I have a small motor which I attach to a metal base. I've secured a piece of wood to the motor shaft where the shoe will be fixed later. The rotation speed is controlled with a lap power supply, as different scanning speed might be necessary. However, I assume that the slower the better. Here I have an old worn out shoe that I threw in the wash machine before starting this project. Perfect for an experiment like this. Wow, I think this almost looks magical, like something from a cool commercial. Okay, let's start scanning. I'm using my old iPhone 11, which has a LiDAR sensor, the same technology used for Face ID. With the right software, like Scandy Pro in my case, you can get fairly decent results. The initial result on my phone already looks pretty good. Now I'm transferring the scan to my PC, where I'll refine the 3D model using Artec Studio. This software is actually designed for professional scanners, but in my case, I'm just using only a phone. Now I export the finished scan so I can open it in the CAD software Fusion 360. In Fusion, I start by designing a shoe sole that roughly follows the contour of the shoe. This is just a test to see if the scan actually matches the real size of the shoe. To check if the designed sole actually matches the shoe, I will 3D print it. Here I'm preparing the scan and splitting the sole into two halves, since my 3D printer is quite small. Here I'm joining the two printed parts of the sole with superglue. As you might have seen in my videos before, superglue is my best friend. I used to avoid it, but now it's my go-to solution. I have to say, I'm pretty impressed, considering this was just a quick scan with my phone and the test sole was kind of rushed. Everything seems to have worked out well. Even though this might seem unnecessary to some, I'm measuring the shoe again, just to leave nothing to chance. And since I wanted these shots to look really cool, I decided to draw the sketch directly on my glass door. Doesn't that look awesome? If you're enjoying this so far, a thumbs up or a subscription would mean a lot. Now that I know the scan has accurate measurements, and I can trust it, I'll use it along with my sketch to design a sole for the healthy foot first. Why start with a healthy foot? Because I'll use it at the baseline to create the sole for the injured foot later. The orange material I used for this is called a TPU. Its main advantage is its flexibility, making it easy to deform. In my opinion, it's perfect for a shoe sole. However, it has one drawback: it tends to string while 3D printing. With perfect settings, you can somewhat control this, but I don't have much experience with this material yet. Since the sole also consists of two parts due to my small 3D printer, I have to print them as separate parts and then bound them together. This time I need a flexible adhesive that matches the properties of TPU. So I'm using a special 2 components flexible glue. I would say that looks pretty good so far. Or would you say otherwise?
It's time for a side project. This time-lapse isn't good enough.
As you've already seen in this video, I'm not really happy with the quality of my 3D printing time-lapse. However, I've seen other videos where time-lapse looks almost magical. To achieve that for this video and for future projects, I want to create time-lapses using my digital camera. To make this work, I need a remote trigger for my camera, which I currently don't have, so let's build one myself. To make this work, I use the mini jack cable and a simple button. However, I can't seem to get the wiring right. Instead of taking a photo, it only triggers video recording, which is not what I need.
It just doesn't work like I wanted. Guess I'll have to buy a remote trigger.
Before I can use the remote trigger, I first need to figure out which contacts are responsible for taking photos. Once I identify them, I solder my button to those contacts. Great! It works! When I press the remote trigger, the camera takes photos instead of starting video recording like before. Now I can work with this. To make this work, I need to install the remote trigger on the 3D printer. For that, I first have to build a mounting setup. I'm attaching this mount to my 3D printer using 2 components glue. It will be placed at the outermost parking position of the X-axis. When the printer moves to this position, after each layer, the remote trigger gets activated once. This way, I'll get a photo after every layer, allowing me to create great time-lapse. At least that's the theory. Since 3D prints usually take several hours and a camera battery might last only about an hour, I need a power supply to keep the camera running continuously. Unfortunately, I don't have one, and I don't want to buy one either. But what I do have is an old battery. My plan is to remove the battery cells from the casing and keep only the circuit board. Then I soldered 2 wires to the spots where the battery was originally connected and hooked them up to an adjustable power supply. Finally, success! Now I can power the camera with the cable. And my time-lapse setup is complete. Alright, let's get back to work. Sorry for the little side project, but it had to be done. Since we already finished the sole for the healthy foot, we just need to mirror it and cut out the area I want to relieve. so that no pressure is applied to the painful part of my foot. At least that's the theory. This sole also needs to be split into two parts. This time I'll position it vertically on the print bed so our new time-lapse setup can hopefully show what it's capable of. Let's see how it goes. The time-lapse actually doesn't look too bad. It's definitely a huge improvement compared to the previous recording I took with the standard camera. Oh man, this is a real hairy disaster. The print doesn't look too bad for TPU, but the stringing is absolutely insane. But I think if I play a barber for a bit, I can fix it. With a hot air gun I can clean up the final imperfections. The heat makes those tiny strings disappear. Here, both parts are glued together again, just like with the previous one. Both soles are now free of strings, and the glue has fully cured. They are ready to be attached to the shoes. I think the results looks pretty good, at least as good as a shoe sole can look. Before attaching the sole to the shoe, I clean the surfaces with alcohol to make sure they are dust and grease free as possible. Ideally the sole would be screwed onto the shoe or permanently attached. However, I see this as an experiment, so I'm using double-sided tape to attach the sole. But this isn't just any tape, it's a special high-strength double-sided tape that holds exceptionally well as long as the surfaces are clean. To improve the wool setup a bit, I got new gel insoles since the old ones were really worn out. Oh come on, it's not that bad. Wow, the new insoles actually looks pretty good. And with my fashion sole, I think I've created a whole new style. Well, kinda. Alright, let's put this on and give them a test. However, I should mention that I'm currently on crutches, so this test won't be completely accurate. Also, no matter if the shoes feel great or terrible, please don't try this yourself. This is just an experiment, I have no medical expertise and honestly don't know what I'm doing. This wool project is just for fun. Please don't replicate it, listen to your doctor. Wow, they work pretty well in the forest. And on the road, they also make a good impression. On desert ground I sink a little and my feet start to sweat. Wow, I can even stomp through the snow with them. It almost feels better than having no injury at all. I'm starting to get really cold and my foot is beginning to hurt again. That's enough, time to head home. But seriously, it does provide some relief and makes careful walking a bit less painful. Still, this was mostly a fun project. If you enjoy the video, I did appreciate a subscription or a thumbs up.
Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.